Advisory, our next guest, saying unpaid super has been one of the most under-prosecuted forms of worker exploitation in Australia. Payday super, that's expected to help fix this by boosting workers' retirement streams through compound interest. It comes into effect the 1st of July. Let's get some greater detail. Ben Graham-Nellor is now joining us. He's the financial advisor at Smart Happy Money. Ben, welcome to you. Great to have you on the show. So these are significant changes. We have in the past focused on perhaps the implications for employers as far as the changes are concerned with cash flow issues. Let's look at the employee to begin with then. You say it's unpaid super, one of the most under-prosecuted forms of worker exploitation. How so?
So the ATO reports that there's hundreds of millions of dollars of unpaid super each year, and that's money that should be going into workers' accounts. And while we agree that there's going to be administrative burden and a cash flow burden on employers, even myself, payday super is going to help those workers track their super more easily.
All right. Practically, how will that be implemented if companies don't come to the party? What are the implications?
Yeah, so having your super go into your account every single payday, so say that's a fortnight, means that you'll be able to look up your superannuation account and see those contributions going in, and they're much easier to track, particularly if you're a casual worker who might be working 2 or 3 different jobs. You can sort of log in and just make sure that your employer is paying super every single time. That's much harder to do with a quarterly contribution, which lands as a lump sum, and you don't know if that's covering off on all the shifts that you've done.
All right, and now you talk about a paper trail, if you like. So that, in terms of enforcement then, what does that mean?
Yeah, so again, you can report to ASIC if the superannuation is unpaid, and that will be dealt with. Hopefully, employers just do the right thing, as they should, for all of their workers.
So, most evident, obviously, for those with full-time jobs. What about more, I guess, those casual workers that might have multiple jobs? What's it mean for them?
So it means a couple of things for them. First off, as we were discussing, the tracking of their superannuation contributions, but also people who are working multiple casual jobs are usually lower income. And if we bring in that equity piece, you usually find that there are more female workers in jobs like that and might be taking breaks to have families and raise families. And what this is going to mean is that their superannuation being paid into their accounts each fortnight, it's going to make a difference, as that money is going to be invested for a longer term. And that compounding, it might not make much of a difference over a couple of months or a couple of years, but when you're looking over a 30 to 40 year career, it's definitely going to add up, and compounding will take effect on those balances and could mean tens of thousands of dollars or more as a better end balance in their superannuation.
What if we break this down to gender? And obviously we talk about the inequality there, particularly in terms of salaries. What are the implications do you think there are for women in the workforce?
Yeah, so there's definitely going to be benefits for women in the workforce with this, because as we know, we do have a reported gender salary gap. And there's also a bit more underreported gender superannuation gap or a gender retirement gap. And due to the women working in typically lower paid jobs and having those breaks that we were discussing before, superannuation isn't being paid as often into their accounts, and they're often retiring with significantly less, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars less than their male counterparts. The superannuation that they are getting paid each time is, again, works its way into the income gap as well, because if they're earning less in the same kind of positions, then they're getting less. 12% of their super is less than the males as well. So this kind of change that's coming in on the 1st of July is going to be great for women, as it's going to be able to be trackable. It's going to mean that money is spending longer compounding and will increase balances at the end of the day.
Now, Ben, more broadly, most Australians probably have a set and forget mentality when it comes to super. What potentially are they missing out here? Specifically, I guess, in what their super funds are investing in?
Yeah, so the superannuation system is somewhere up around $4.5 trillion at the moment, which is a whole lot of money. And if you do set and forget, then you don't really know where your superannuation is invested. And unless you've taken steps to avoid these particular things, you probably do have money invested in gambling, weaponry, alcohol, tobacco, all kinds of things that if you were sitting across from a financial advisor and they said, do you want to invest your money in weapons companies, you may say no, but you will have superannuation invested in there, even if you don't realise it. 19 of the major superannuation funds have increased their exposure to fossil fuels, which is obviously important for a lot of people as well, over the last few years. And as I said at the start, if you don't actually take steps to not have those things in your superannuation, chances are you probably do.
Now, Ben, in the wake of the budget, there's been a lot of focus, particularly on the tax implications, clearly for investing, but perhaps one of the more attractive ways to invest is via your super, albeit, of course, there are caps that you have to take into account. But in terms of younger Australians who may have just entered the workforce, how do you sell super to them? Because like any young person, of course, you think about retirement, it is way off, and therefore a super is certainly an afterthought.
Yeah, that's right. And it is a problem we have, is getting those young people to connect with superannuation as being their own money. Young people are dealing with a lot at the moment. They're dealing with a housing crisis, there's cost of living pressure, job insecurity, and retirement is probably not right, at the forefront of their minds. But as superannuation is going to be probably the biggest pool of wealth that they have over their entire lifetime, the earlier they start thinking about that, the better. How do we get them to connect? Well, it's really hard. I mean, we could go back to a bit about the ethical side of investing. A 25-year-old who might be really concerned about climate change might be able to connect with their superannuation by looking at it from an ethical perspective, where they might want to try and invest in an activist way, or just an avoidance way of all those things that they might not want in their superannuation. I think making super tangible to young people is probably the best way to go. So rather than sort of saying things like, you want to have at least $1 million at the age of 65 to retire, if you tell a 24-year-old that you can put $50 a month into their super, that'll give you an extra $150,000. That makes more sense. It's more realistic and tangible to them.
And do you feel as though perhaps financial planners have let young Australians down here? I mean, we know the influence of the so-called finfluencers. Is that who they're listening to rather than turning to financial advisors?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a few reasons for that. I mean, one is that the young people, they're on socials. They're on TikTok and Instagram and all the other ones out there. And that's where the influencers are. And they're gaining views. And as you've heard, ASIC is starting to crack down on them for giving unlicensed financial advice. And a lot of the advice they're getting from those influencers isn't that great anyway. The financial planning, like us, our firms, we've let young people down, to be honest. We need to do a better job of engaging with young people. The cost of advice is a big barrier for young people to come and receive financial advice. It's a very big issue. And also, we are not where they are. Financial advice firms, I myself, we try this. I know plenty of advisors that try this. We try and do the socials and everything, but we're not quite hitting the mark. And perhaps we need to improve ourselves in order to go and find those young people and give them the advice that they need.
Well, let's get into the advisory. And with property tax concessions facing fresh scrutiny, many investors are taking another look.
Well, let's now turn to the advice.
I myself, we try this. I know plenty of advisors that try this. We try and do the socials and everything, but we're not quite hitting the mark. And perhaps we need to improve ourselves.